There's a reason people walk over you, interrupt you, dismiss your ideas, or take your presence for granted. It's not because you lack strength or intelligence. It's because you're too transparent. You wear your emotions openly, you explain yourself too quickly, you aim to be understood before you're respected. In a world that thrives on power, being transparent without being formidable is an invitation to be overlooked. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He didn't write to comfort you, he wrote to arm you. The world doesn't bow to kindness, it bows to mystery. You've been taught to be approachable, to smile first, to share your thoughts freely, to be the good one in the room. But here's the truth, people don't respect the good ones. They use them. What's predictable is exploitable. What's exploitable is disposable. Machiavelli understood that true control doesn't come from shouting or pleading. It comes from silence. In a room full of voices clamoring for attention, the one who says nothing commands the most eyes. Not because they're loud, but because they're unreadable. They don't expect a performance from you. They expect something they can't predict. That's the goal, to be watched not for validation, but for caution. Think about your life. How many times have you been ignored until you stepped back? How many times did people only notice your worth after you stopped chasing their approval? How many times did respect come only after you set a boundary with silence? That's because you were playing the game of likability while they were playing the game of power. They knew you'd explain, forgive, stay, or compromise first. They knew you wouldn't push back. But once you become unreadable, even quietly, they hesitate. They rethink their words. They tread carefully. Because now you might not react, but you might act. And that possibility is what shifts the dynamic. The stakes are clear. If you keep being the open book, the one who's always available, always predictable, people will keep taking from you without giving back. They'll interrupt your sentences, demand your time, expect your empathy, and dismiss your boundaries because they know you'll bend before you break. You'll be the safe one, the one they can push because your kindness stops you from pushing back. But if you embrace Machiavelli's quiet strategy, silence, restraint, unpredictability, you become something else entirely. You become a presence they can't ignore. Look at your relationships, your workplace, your social circles. How many times have you been tested because you were emotionally accessible? People don't test the ones they fear. They test the ones they can read, the ones they know won't escalate. But when you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop showing every card in your hand, they pause. They second guess. They adjust. That's the power of silence. It's not about being cruel or cold. It's about being a mystery they can't solve. When you're predictable, you're a tool. When you're unreadable, you're a force. Machiavelli didn't teach violence. He taught perception. If you don't control how others perceive you, they'll control how they treat you. And the first step to that control is learning to say nothing when they expect everything. Let's start with the core principles of Machiavelli's silent strategy. To control others without a word, you must master the art of being unreadable. The world is a stage where everyone is performing, showing their ambitions, their fears, their desires. The loud ones spill everything. Their plans, their triggers, their insecurities. They think transparency builds trust, but it builds vulnerability. Machiavelli knew better. He taught opacity, the art of keeping your true intentions hidden. When people can't read you, they can't predict you. When they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Instead, they wait. They watch. They adjust to you. The first principle is to say less than necessary. The more you talk, the more you reveal. Every word you speak is a clue to your emotions, your priorities, your weaknesses. So, you speak sparingly. You answer questions with brevity. You let silence fill the gaps. When someone asks for your opinion, you give a nod, a half smile, a vague, interesting. You don't commit. You don't explain. You let them wonder what you're holding back. The second principle is to react slower. Most people rush to respond, to defend, to clarify, to prove. But every rushed reaction is a signal of insecurity. When you pause, when you let their words hang in the air, you show control. You show you're not desperate to be understood. That pause makes them question their own words. The third principle is to keep your intentions ambiguous. Never let anyone know your full plan. If they ask what you're working on, say, something that's coming together. If they push for details, smile and say, you'll see when it's ready. This ambiguity isn't deceit, it's strategy. It forces others to fill in the blanks with their imagination, and imagination amplifies your presence. The fourth principle is to embrace inconsistency. Not erratic behavior, but calculated unpredictability. One day, you're warm and approachable. The next, you're distant and reserved. This keeps people off balance. They can't pin you down, so they stay cautious. These principles aren't about hiding who you are, they're about controlling how much of you the world gets to see. Because in a world where everyone is shouting to be noticed, the one who stays silent is the one they can't stop thinking about. Now, let's get practical. How do you build this commanding presence in your daily life? It's not about grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. It's about small, deliberate habits that rewire how others perceive you. Habit 1. Never be the first to react. When someone says something provocative, whether it's an insult, a jab, or a subtle challenge, don't take the bait. Most people jump to respond, to defend their pride, to get the last word. But you wait. You let their words sit in the air. You blink slowly, maybe tilt your head, but you don't speak until you're ready. This pause does two things. It makes them doubt their own move, and it makes your next move the one everyone anticipates. Machiavelli would let a rival finish their speech, then respond with a single phrase that cut deeper than a paragraph. The pause is your power. Habit 2. Speak slower, say less, leave earlier. Speed betrays anxiety, brevity signals confidence. When you speak, slow your pace. Let each word carry weight. Don't fill the silence with chatter, let it linger. And when the conversation peaks, when everyone expects you to stay and bask in the moment, leave. Exit the room, the chat, the meeting before your presence becomes ordinary. People notice absence more than presence. When you leave early, they wonder where you went, what you're doing, why you didn't stay. That wonder is your leverage. Habit 3. Withdraw to reinforce your presence. The most powerful people aren't always there. They appear, make an impact, then vanish. Don't linger in social spaces until you're taken for granted. Don't stay in arguments until you're just another voice. Step back. Let your absence speak. When you stop replying to a group chat, when you leave a meeting early, when you don't show up to an expected event, people feel the shift. They start asking, where is he? What's she doing? Your scarcity makes your presence heavier. Habit 4. Never over-explain your moves. If you say no, let it stand. If you change your mind, don't justify it. If you walk away, don't look back. Explaining feels natural. You want to be clear, to avoid misunderstanding. But every explanation is a crack in your armor. It says, I need you to approve of me. Machiavelli never justified his decisions. He made them and the world adjusted. When someone asks why you did something, give them a smile and a vague, it felt right. Let them wrestle with the ambiguity. Habit 5. Maintain emotional neutrality in social games. People will test you. They'll poke at your ego, question your silence, try to guilt you into reacting. Don't. Stay calm. Smile faintly. Let their attempts bounce off you. When they can't crack your composure, they start assuming you're stronger than they are. That assumption is your power. These habits aren't about changing who you are, they're about changing how the world sees you. Start with 1. Pause before you speak today. Watch how people shift when you don't rush to fill the silence. But silence alone isn't enough. To wield true influence, you must balance fear with respect. Fear without respect breeds resentment. If people only fear you, they'll obey in the moment but plot against you in the shadows. They'll smile to your face and sharpen their knives behind your back. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't just want compliance, he wanted reverence. Respect without fear, on the other hand, breeds entitlement. If people only respect you, they'll praise your skills, admire your character, but they'll also expect your kindness, demand your time, and take you for granted. The solution is tension. A subtle, deliberate tension that keeps people on edge in the right way. They need to feel you're approachable but not to be tested, calm but not predictable, kind but not guaranteed. How do you build this tension? Strategy 1. Be consistent in control, inconsistent in emotion. Always show composure, but vary your warmth. One day, you're engaged and attentive. The next, you're distant and observant. This unpredictability keeps people guessing. They don't know which version of you they'll get, so they stay cautious. Strategy 2. Speak with precision, then disappear. When you do speak, make it count. End an argument with a single, sharp sentence. Correct a mistake with one clear statement. Then stop. Don't repeat yourself. Don't linger to see their reaction. Leave the room, the conversation, the moment. That brevity sticks in their minds longer than a lecture. Strategy 3. Let praise exist without confirmation. When someone compliments you, don't melt or deflect. Nod, hold eye contact, maybe offer a slight smirk, but don't return the praise or seek their approval. This shows you value yourself without needing their validation, and that self-assurance is unsettling. Strategy 4. Make people feel the weight of losing you without threatening to leave. Don't announce your departure or beg for attention. Simply withdraw. Stop replying to casual messages. Skip an event you'd normally attend. Be professionally cold when someone crosses a line. They'll feel the shift because your presence had a weight they didn't realize until it was gone. This tension isn't drama, it's control. It's the difference between being liked and being unforgettable. Machiavelli didn't want to be loved, he wanted to be a presence that lingered in people's minds. You can do the same. Be the one they respect for your calm, but fear for what you might do next. The final piece of Machiavelli's strategy is creating obsession through absence. People don't obsess over what's always there. They obsess over what feels close but just out of reach. Your goal isn't to be everywhere, it's to be missed when you're gone. This is where silence becomes more than a tactic, it becomes a weapon. When you withhold your full self, when you give just enough to intrigue but not enough to satisfy, you create a psychological loop. People replay your actions, dissect your silence, invent stories to explain what they can't understand. That's power. Strategy 1. Don't give them what they expect. Most people are predictable. They're overly kind, overly talkative, overly available. You do the opposite. Smile less. Speak slowly. Offer only what's necessary. This contrast forces people to adjust. They slow their words, soften their tone, rethink their approach not because you demanded it, but because your energy shifted the room. Strategy 2. Let them project, then withhold. People will try to label you intense, mysterious, distant. Let them. Don't correct their assumptions. Don't clarify who you are. Their projections become your advantage. They'll overthink your silence, analyze your glance, wonder what your half-smile meant. That mental loop is your PR team working for free. Strategy 3. Leave them mid-sentence. Not literally, but emotionally. End conversations just before they feel complete. Walk away from a group when the energy is high. Give a response that feels final but leaves a question hanging. This incompleteness hooks them. They'll replay the moment, trying to finish what you started. That's how you live in their heads. Strategy 4. Protect your inner world like a fortress. When someone asks what drives you, say, I'm focused on what matters. When they ask if you're okay, say, I'm always adapting. When they ask what you want, say, that depends on the moment. Give hints, never answers. The moment someone knows your full motivations, they start plotting how to use them. But when your inner world feels untouchable, they stop pushing and start wondering. This is Machiavelli's genius. He wasn't remembered for what he said, but for what people thought he might do. That uncertainty is your hook. It's what makes you unforgettable. When you leave a room, people don't move on. They wonder what you're planning next. Let's bring this together. You started this journey as someone who was underestimated, overlooked because you were too open, too predictable, too eager to be liked. But by embracing Machiavelli's quiet strategy, silence, restraint, unpredictability, you've transformed. You're no longer the one who explains, chases, or bends. You're the one who's watched, not for attention, but for caution. You don't need to raise your voice or make threats. Your presence speaks louder than words. Your absence echoes even louder. Start today with one habit. Pause before you react. Let someone's words hang in the air. Watch how they shift when you don't rush to respond. That's the first step to becoming a presence that commands respect without a word. Machiavelli didn't just want power in the moment. He wanted to live in people's minds long after he was gone. True control isn't about dominance. It's about being the one they can't stop thinking about. It's about being the silence that feels louder than their noise. So, ask yourself, what kind of presence do you want to be? The one who's liked and forgotten, or the one who's feared and remembered? Build that version of you, step by step, silence by silence. Because in a world that never stops talking, the one who masters silence controls the room. You know the feeling, don't you? You step into a room, ready to contribute, to connect, to be seen, but instead, you're brushed aside. People interrupt you, dismiss your thoughts, or act as if you're just background noise. It's not because you're weak, unintelligent, or unworthy. It's because you're too transparent. You wear your heart on your sleeve, explain your motives too quickly, and strive to be liked before you're respected. In a world that thrives on power, being an open book without a hint of mystery is a death sentence for influence. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write to soothe your ego. He wrote to sharpen your edge. Being liked is a fleeting comfort. Being feared, quietly, is a lasting command. You've been trained to be approachable, to smile first, to share your thoughts freely, to be the good one in every interaction. But here's the brutal truth. People don't respect the good ones. They exploit them. What's visible is predictable, and what's predictable is manipulable. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He didn't preach comfort, he preached control. The world doesn't bow to kindness, it bows to enigma. In a room full of voices clamoring for attention, the one who says nothing, who stands still while others scramble, commands every eye. Not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they're unreadable. They don't expect a speech from you. They expect something they can't name. That's your goal, to be watched not for applause, but for caution. Reflect on your life. How many times have you been ignored until you stopped engaging? How many times did someone only value you after you withdrew, after you stopped seeking their approval? How many times did respect come only when you enforced a boundary with silence? That's because you were playing the game of likability, while they were playing the game of power. They knew you'd explain, forgive, stay, or compromise first. They knew you wouldn't push back. But when you become unreadable, even subtly, they hesitate. They rethink their words. They tread lightly. Because now you might not react, but you might act. And that possibility shifts the balance in your favor. The stakes are stark and unforgiving. If you keep being the open book, always available, always explaining, always bending to others' expectations, you'll remain trapped in a cycle of being used. People will take your time, interrupt your ideas, and test your limits because they know you'll yield before you snap. They'll see your kindness as a contract, your patience as permission. You'll be the safe one, the one they can push because your empathy stops you from pushing back. In meetings, your suggestions will be overlooked until you stop offering them. In relationships, your efforts will be taken for granted until you pull away. In social circles, your presence will be assumed until you make it scarce. That's the cost of predictability. You become a tool, not a force. But if you embrace Machiavelli's quiet strategy, silence, restraint, unpredictability, you become untouchable. Consider the moments when silence worked in your favor. When you stopped responding to a friend's demands, didn't they suddenly reach out? When you walked away from a toxic dynamic, didn't respect follow? When you held your tongue in a heated argument, didn't the other person falter? That's because predictability invites exploitation, while mystery demands caution. Machiavelli didn't advocate cruelty, he advocated perception. If you don't control how others perceive you, they'll control how they treat you. When you stop talking, stop chasing, stop revealing every thought, people start watching. They pause before they speak. They question their assumptions. They adjust to you. That's not just influence, it's dominance. And it begins with mastering the art of saying nothing when they expect everything. Let's unpack the core principles of Machiavelli's quiet strategy. To control others without a word, you must become a mystery they can't solve. Most people are an open stage, performing their lives for all to see. their ambitions, their insecurities, their plans. They think transparency builds connection, but it builds vulnerability. Machiavelli taught the opposite. Opacity is power. When people can't read you, they can't predict you. When they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Instead, they wait, they watch, they adapt to you. Principle 1. Say less than necessary. Every word you speak is a clue to your inner world. The more you talk, the more you expose your emotions, your priorities, your weaknesses. So, you speak sparingly. Answer questions with brevity. If someone asks your opinion, give a nod, a faint smile, a vague, that's an interesting perspective. Don't commit. Don't elaborate. Let silence fill the gaps. This forces others to project their own meanings onto your words, amplifying your presence. Principle 2. React slower. Most people rush to respond, to defend, to clarify, to prove themselves. But every rushed reaction signals insecurity. When you pause, when you let their words hang in the air, you show control. You show you're not desperate to be understood. Imagine a colleague criticizing your work. Instead of jumping to explain, you look at them, tilt your head slightly, and wait. That pause makes them question their own words. It shifts the power to you. Principle 3. Keep your intentions ambiguous. Never reveal your full plan. If someone asks what you're working on, say, something that's coming together. If they push for details, smile and say, you'll see when it's ready. This ambiguity isn't deceit, it's strategy. It forces others to imagine your potential, and their imagination makes you larger than life. Principle 4. Embrace controlled inconsistency. Not erratic behavior, but deliberate unpredictability. One day, you're warm and approachable. The next, you're distant and reserved. In a meeting, you might offer a sharp insight, then stay silent for the rest. At a social event, you might engage deeply with one person, then withdraw into observation. This keeps people off balance, unsure of which version of you they'll encounter. They stay cautious, respectful, because they don't want to test the side of you they haven't met. Principle 5. Let silence be your shield. Silence isn't absence, it's presence. When others expect you to fill the void, your refusal to do so makes you the focal point. Think of a tense family dinner where everyone's arguing. Instead of joining the fray, you sit back, observe, and let the chaos unfold. Your silence becomes louder than their shouts. These principles aren't about hiding who you are, they're about controlling how much of you the world gets to see. In a world where everyone is screaming to be noticed, the one who stays silent is the one they can't stop thinking about.